Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with the Spain News Update. And the government yesterday approved a new plan, a plan that it hopes will bring down electricity prices. And let's just say that electricity companies are not happy. But more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise. And a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your ongoing support. Now, let's get into the news. And as I said, the government announced yesterday a new plan to bring electricity prices down. They're calling it a shock plan, and they announced a series of measures that they hope will keep consumers happy. As we can see here, these are the measures approved by the Council of Ministers that bring down the price of electricity. The Council of Ministers today approved a new package of measures aimed at curbing the rise in electricity prices on the wholesale market. The Minister for Ecological Transition and the Demographic Challenge, Teresa Rivera, has indicated that this is a shock plan, a battery of measures to take away the profits of electricity companies obtained from the evolution of gas prices on the market so that consumers pay less on their electricity bills. They will pay in 2021 an amount equivalent to what they paid in their 2018 bills, she said. And here are some of the measures that the government approved yesterday. For example, the special electricity tax is falling from 5.1% to 0.5%. They also announced an extension of the suspension of the 7% tax on electricity generation and an injection of an additional 900 million euros from CO2 auctions to reduce the cost of electricity. So there we go, some of the main measures announced yesterday by the Sanchez government to get the price of electricity down. And as we saw, one of the main objectives is to take away some of the profits from these energy companies. And let's just say they are not very happy about that. And as a result, electricity companies have launched an offensive against the cut in remuneration and plan to take the matter to the courts. Electricity companies are preparing to respond to the government's shock plan, which they consider unfair. In their opinion, the measures aimed at intervening in the markets go against their efficiency, European orthodoxy, and create a climate of legal uncertainty. In this regard, the Association of Electricity Companies, which brings together Iberdrola, Endesa, Viesco and EDP, has issued a statement in which it expresses its categorical rejection of the measures announced in the Council of Ministers aimed at electricity companies. Business sources have added that they will study the Royal Decree law in detail to decide whether there is justification for taking legal action. In turn, the Nuclear Forum, an organisation that also includes the major electricity companies, has announced that if the draft law on the remuneration of CO2 in the electricity market is approved, which removes the so-called benefits that companies receive for not emitting carbon dioxide, it would be impossible for Spanish nuclear power plants to continue. So the electricity companies here in Spain on the front foot, threatening to take the government to court for intervening in their market, and also threatening to shut down nuclear power plants here. So we'll keep an eye on this one, and I'm sure it's going to dominate headlines here in Spain in days and weeks to come. Now, today's good news story is that the fires that were raging down there close to the Costa del Sol have been brought under control, and now the attention turns to finding the who started them. As we can see here, Andalucian Premier Juanma Moreno assures that the fire in Malaga was set with very bad intentions because the perpetrators knew it would be windy. Juanma Moreno, president of the Junta de Andalucía, maintains that the serious fires in Sierra Bermeja, Malaga, which has already been brought under control by the emergency services, was clearly intentional. For this reason, he promises harsh punishment for those responsible. This is what the leader said on Tuesday in an interview on Onda Cero, in which he also shared some details about the conditions in which the alleged perpetrators would have started the fire. According to Moreno, the key now lies in making every effort to find those responsible, and he promises to exert pressure on the state security forces so that the perpetrators are caught as quickly as possible. They have to pay for their sentences. I'm going to put very strong pressure on them, that we hunt them down. I'm not going to get that objective out of my mind, he affirms. So the fires down there in Malaga deliberately lit, and the Premier of Andalucía is saying that he's going to do everything in his power to catch the perpetrators. And let's just hope that these absolute scumbags are caught and they get the punishment that they deserve. Now, Spain's biggest company, Inditex, is making headlines today, and for that company it's a question of crisis. What crisis? As it overcomes the pandemic and closes the best second quarter in its history. Inditex has already overcome the pandemic. This is shown by the results of the second quarter of its fiscal year 2021, in which the Galician textile giant exceeded the revenue it generated in the same period of 2019, when COVID-19 was not even close to being a bad dream. The owner of Zara invoiced between May and July a total of 6.994 billion euros, 48% more than a year ago, and 1.2% more than 2 years ago, this being the first quarterly period in which it exceeds pre-pandemic levels levels since the health crisis began. And not only that, this is the best second quarter in the company's history, returning to the record-breaking path to which it was accustomed before the pandemic exploded. So the Inditex group going from strength to strength, selling more clothes than ever before, and I'm sure Greta is not happy about that. Now, COVID passports are back in the news here in Spain today, and if you want to go to a bar or restaurant in Galicia, you better get one, because the Supreme Court has upheld the COVID passport requirement for access to bars and nightclubs in that part of Spain. The Supreme Court has endorsed this Tuesday the obligation to display the COVID passport in restaurants and nightlife establishments in Galicia, a measure approved by the Xunta last August, but which was rejected by the Galicia High Court of Justice. The fourth section of the High Court has now upheld the appeal of the government of Alberto Núñez Feijóo against the order of the Regional Court, which rejected this obligation, considering that the measure is suitable, necessary and proportionate. The magistrates consider that the benefit provided by the measure with regard to the significant reduction of contagions is much greater than the sacrifice entailed by the requirement to present the documentation for access to the premises, and they do not see any other that is more appropriate for safeguarding the life and health of citizens in this type of premises. So there we go, the Galician government given the okay by the Supreme Court to require COVID certificate to enter bars and restaurants in that part of Spain, and I imagine that it's only a question of time before COVID certificates become compulsory in other parts of the country, given that ruling. And the court also saying that it's the best way to safeguard the life and health of people in this type of establishment. Now, keeping on the topic of nightlife here in Spain, the situation is still not good for people in that industry, but apparently it's getting better. As we can see here, nightlife in Spain remains in freefall, but is starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. After more than a year and a half of closure due to the pandemic, the nightlife sector, one of the hardest hit by the crisis, is beginning to see signs of hope. Nightclubs and bars are confident that they will be able to carry out a total reopening between the end of September and the beginning of October, encouraged by an improvement in the epidemiological data and the successful vaccination campaign. The announcement that the Community of Madrid will allow free opening hours for the sector, along with similar measures in Asturias and Castilla y León, could be the start of a domino effect that other communities will follow in the coming weeks, Vicente Pizcueta, spokesman for the Employers Association España de Noche, told RTVE.es. At the other extreme is Catalonia, which limits the opening hours of all businesses to 12:30 at night. So some light at the end of the tunnel for the nightlife industry here in Spain, but again, different rules and restrictions when it comes to nightlife depending on where you are. Catalonia, as we saw, still quite strict, but in Madrid, virtually no restrictions at all. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain. We can see that the accumulated incidence rate for the last 14 days now down to 109. There are still 4,459 people hospitalised around the country with COVID, and there are still 1,136 people with COVID in ICU. Now, the magazine Time Out has recently compiled a list of the best cities in the world to live in, and two Spanish cities, Madrid and Barcelona, made the top 20. As we can see here, Madrid and Barcelona chosen among the 20 best cities in the world to live in. Time Out is one of the most important magazines in the world for choosing cities, neighbourhoods to live in or visit. Last year they chose the Malasaña neighbourhood in Madrid as one of the best to stay in, and now the prestigious magazine has drawn up its ranking of the best cities in the world in 2021. The magazine conducted a total of 27,000 interviews with people in different cities, and also analysed the sense of community in each destination, as well as the cultural offer, leisure, nightlife, and the most outstanding restaurants in each city. Two Spanish cities are on the list of the best 20 cities to live in. Barcelona is in 14th place, while Madrid is in 18th place. They highlight Barcelona's cultural offer and its food and drink, while they think that Madrid is a very easy city to make friends. So congratulations to Barcelona and Madrid for making the list, with Barcelona being a fantastic city if you like to eat and drink, and Madrid being a fantastic city if you're looking to make friends. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Amanda. Hi Stu, love your news updates and humour. We live on the Costa del Sol Occidental. This is day 6 of the wildfires. Seriously scary. This morning we saw seaplanes working tirelessly. It was incredible to see them collecting water from the sea and circling the burning mountains. The fires and the strange ash clouds seemed to transform the mountains into volcanoes. Sadly, one firefighter died. True heroes. Yeah, Amanda, thanks for the comment, and I couldn't agree with you more that the people that fight these fires are true heroes, and the people that start the fires are an absolute disgrace to society. Luckily, as we saw before, the fires have now been brought under control, but I imagine that last week and over the weekend it was very, very scary, and it must be an absolute nightmare for people that live in areas that every year run the risk of bushfires. And I saw a bloke on the television the other day in one of the villages affected by the fires down there in Malaga saying that he has had enough. Every year there's either a fire or floods, so he's getting out. And let's be honest, who can blame him? One here from Howard regarding jobs in Spain, 150,000 people applying for 3,500 jobs. In the UK, we currently have more jobs than unemployed people, 1 million jobs available. Yeah, Howard, thanks for the comment, and obviously referring to a news story that we saw the other day about how the postal system here in Spain, Correos, is looking for 3,500 people and 150,000 people sat the exams. And as I said the other day, it just goes to show you how sought after this type of job is here in Spain. And thanks for pointing out that currently in the UK there are more jobs available than unemployed people, so maybe some people here in Spain could go to the UK and take up some of those jobs. Oh, that's right, they can't because of Brexit. One here from Steve, many thanks Stu, for the expiring vaccines. Why not send them to Morocco? They are at about 30% fully vaxxed. They are the closest non-EU neighbours, and it could be a good gesture after the mess from this past summer. Since people from Spain and Morocco travel back and forth often, having a high vaccination rate in Morocco can only be good. Take care and keep up the great work. Yes, Steve, thanks for the comment. We saw the other day that there are some 7 million doses of COVID vaccine sitting in fridges around the country, unused, because there aren't enough people left to be vaccinated. The government has a bit of a dilemma because the vials are reaching their expiry date. And you're right, it could be a good idea to send them to Morocco and try to fix that broken bridge between the two countries. But it doesn't really matter where these doses end up as long as they do end up in a country that needs them, because we have to get the world vaccinated against COVID-19, or otherwise this is going to be a problem for many years to come. One here from Toots, this past weekend in the US was kickoff for the football season. Stadiums across the nation were sold out with no mask requirement. Can't understand why the COVID rates are going up. Yeah, Toots, thanks for the comment. I saw images of those football games and there were a lot of people packed into stadiums across the United States. Same thing is happening in England, I believe, with the Premier League. Full stadiums there, no mask requirement and no social distancing. Here in Spain, I think stadiums have to operate at about 60% capacity. People have to wear masks and there is also social distancing. So different rules and regulations as far as sporting events are concerned in different countries. And to be honest, I don't have a problem with people going to football games and sporting events, but what I don't want is to be locked down in November or December if COVID-19 again gets out of control because people are not wearing masks or people are not social distancing. But hey, that's just me. One here from John. Successive governments in the UK have promoted the idea that university is the place to go and all students should try for it. Now we have a situation where so many go each year that apprenticeships have nosedived and there is a chronic shortage of skilled workers all over the UK. The promised well-paid jobs for those with degrees has not happened, as for every vacancy there's hundreds of applicants. Yeah, John, thanks for the comment, and it's a fairly similar situation here in Spain and other countries around the world, that people are encouraged to go to university, they're not encouraged to go into apprenticeships, not encouraged to learn skills, leading to the chronic shortage of skilled workers that you mentioned there. In fact, in this part of Spain, if you need a plumber or an electrician, they normally come from an Eastern European country, not normally a local. But as we saw the other day, the government has a plan to change all that. They launched a huge vocational training program, throwing a lot of money at it, and the idea is to equip the youth of Spain with the skills they need to get a job. So let's hope that it is successful and that it doesn't turn into a huge corruption scandal like it did a few years ago down there in Andalucía. And finally, one from Outdoor Chilled. Correo is worthless. In Barcelona, my previous apartment building, they just dropped everyone's mail on the floor, and when I complained they insulted me. Where I live now, also Barcelona, at least they place it on top of the mailboxes for everyone to take. I've given up complaining. Why have mailboxes at all when they don't use them? Yeah, Outdoor, thanks for the comment. And Correos here in Spain does cop a fair bit of flack. A lot of people complain about the service they give. A lot of people complain that it's a very irregular service nowadays, that they don't get mail delivered on a daily basis, maybe once or twice a week, and normally you get 5 or 6 letters at a time. Going to a post office can also be an absolute nightmare, especially where I live here on the outskirts of Madrid. Endless queues, and they don't handle criticism very well in my experience. So no point complaining. Unfortunately, it is what it is, and I doubt that those new 3,500 workers that they are going to employ will make much of a difference. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.